I just wanted to start off with, I guess, overcoming drug addiction. You know, something that I've kind of gone through many cycles, and we all go through. I guess everyone has their specific substance which they struggle with the most, and yeah, I think with for you, what it was like kratom, right? Kratom and nangs.
Nangs, that is a very Aussie thing to call them, I think.
Ah, yeah, is it? What
Yeah, I don't. No one calls it nangs here, so
what do you guys call it?
they usually just call them whippets.
Ah, yeah, it does sound very Aussie. Oh, bloody nangs, mate. Yeah.
No, mine was. It depends on what section of my life you were to take a snapshot of. At a time, it was alcohol heavily, and then at a time it was cigarettes heavily, and like overcame the cigarette addiction, and then at a time it was actually MDMA, and I was doing MDMA like once or twice a week. I mean, what I thought was MDMA. Who knows what it actually was? I didn't know anything about reagent testing back then, but I was taking some form of entactogen, dopamine slash serotonin, reuptake inhibitor slash releaser way too frequently, and that was really hard to get off of. And yeah, the constant has always been there's been something that I was addicted to. There's always something.
Yeah.
So it's not always the same thing, but there's always something that has to fill that. It's like a vacuum opens up, and it's like, what is the new addiction going to be now? So I've gone through a lot of addictions.
I feel like with the addiction, like especially if you have a strong addictive personality, it can it's like a double-edged sword, right? You can use it, if you use it towards the wrong direction, like drugs or porn or video games or whatever, it's like you get really obsessive, but sometimes you can kind of transmute that and use it into something good. Because I've seen it with yourself, like being more obsessed with YouTube and making high quality videos and working out and stuff like that. So I guess, how do you mitigate that aspect of it? How do you turn your addiction tracks into something more positive and stay consistent? Because consistency seems to be the hardest thing. Because like I've gone through many addiction cycles too, and like, when sometimes you're like, yep, I'm done, I've quit, I'm over it, and then whatever, maybe a year, 2 years later, something triggers it back, and then you go back into that cycle. So how do you stay consistent and like actually break the addiction for good?
So you can't. The only way to break a pattern that, say, you've felt like chained to for most of your life, is you have to get to the root cause of why you're partaking in the behavior. So it's not necessarily about being consistent. So being consistent in like directing them towards good things is kind of like a band-aid approach, because you're avoiding, or you're not really healing what's causing the behavior that you don't want. You're just saying, well, let's just point this to something good, and just like, we'll forget about this big pile of shit in the corner. We'll just look this way for a while. Like, you have to address the pile of shit is the first thing. And so most people's solutions for any kind of addiction is they do what's called the abstinence method, where they join like AA. And first of all, I'm not shitting on this stuff. It works for some people, but really, like, if you want me to be blunt, and the truth kind of hurts, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, it is a band-aid. Because abstinence is just saying, as long as I refrain from said behavior long enough, my life will improve. And it's a good band-aid. It works. A lot of people's lives do improve. But for a lot of them, when you use that as your only strategy for healing, again, it's not really a strategy for healing, but when that's your only strategy for moving forward, you never actually heal the problem. So there's always something in the back of your head that's like, today's been shitty, but if I could just use X, Y, Z, whatever the drug is, it would feel better. They always have moments where they're like, today would be so much better if. They're never, I mean, a really blanket statement when I say they never. I'm sure there are some people who actually heal it, but I'm talking like those who don't, just to be kind of more concise on who I'm targeting with the generalization. A lot of them don't get to a point where it's like they're truly just happy, without the drug. A lot of them will say, like, it's been so many years, and still in the back of my head some days I just wish I could use. So that's why they celebrate, like, it's been a year, it's been 2 years, and they're always celebrating these milestones, because if you think about it, that is a massive achievement. If they're always battling with it, that is but the point is they're always battling it. They never heal it. And that's actually, like, good on them to make it that long, to win the battle for that long. I can't even fathom it. Like, they're doing an amazing job with their plan of attack. It's not, I wouldn't say it's the most effective, but like, some people truly believe that addiction is a disease and that there's no way to heal it. that's what they're taught, and they really latch onto this mindset, and they do not allow themselves to see any potential, alternative ways of thinking. And I think it comes down to just that your thoughts create your reality, and that sounds really hocus pocus to some people, but it's true. Like, what's that famous quote? Whether you think you can or you can't, you are right. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these people, they're just convinced that they are lifelong addicts, and that could just be the main thought that's keeping them in the cycle, because you have to first, think that you can get out of it. If you don't think you can, you'll never get out of it. So I went on a big tangent there, but I guess to wrap it all up, what I'm trying to say is you have to heal the trauma that's caused the tendency if you want to actually move forward efficiently.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, looking at the shit that you've kind of repressed, or some people.
But people
call
can't
it the shadow.
see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not everyone they don't even know that what it is. They just know the symptom, which is the addiction. They don't actually know the cause of the symptom.
And on top of that, it seems to be like an identity sort of thing, like you said, like counting the days and battling this thing, and like, oh, I'm an addict, things like that, kind of reperpetuating these belief systems. Because that's something that we were just talking about before, like me quitting weed, for example. Like, that's been my biggest addiction. I know that some people kind of laugh like, oh, weed, that's not a real addiction, but it really is for some people. And for that, I feel like every time I've quit in the past, it's always me counting the days, like sort of like that. Oh, yep, I've gone 3 days, I've gone 1 week, I've gone 2 weeks. And it's like you said, it's like constant battle. You know what I mean? So then all it can take is like that one drag of a joint, and then boom, it's just triggered that cycle. And like you said, it's because you haven't really dealt with the underlying cause, but also the approach that you're taking. Whereas sometimes, it's like in one of the videos that you made on overcoming this, you said you just knew in your core, like, yeah, I'm done. You just you remove that option, so that way you're not using your willpower.
People hated those videos that I made. Those videos got a lot of hate.
Did they?
Not all of them. The one where I'm in the muscle shirt and I'm all like, the lighting is perfect, my traps look huge. I'm like, oh, look like a bodybuilder. Everyone hated that one. They're like, oh, you replaced it for steroids, when that's not even the case. So it's funny when you see people's reactions when you're like doing well. A lot of them don't like it because it triggers something in them.
And what would you say to those who say that you're just replacing it with something else?
Nature abhors a vacuum. So if there was an addiction that you had that took up a big chunk of your thoughts and your time, unless you're replacing it with nothing, which could translate into meditation, that's still something. You're always going to replace the void with something. It's just a matter of replacing with something healthy over something unhealthy.
Absolutely. So what's been kind of helping you, like, outside of facing your trauma and stuff like that, unless you wanted to get into the underlying.
You need therapy for that. Like, me, like, explaining the trauma, I don't know if it might help some people, but I couldn't even like point to one thing and say, well, that's it. That's the thing. Like, it's usually a big array of beliefs that we've held about ourselves and experiences that led us to think certain things, and inadequacies we might have felt from, branching from childhood to early relationships. Like, you're unpacking this really giant box, and there's just so many different things that it's never just one. I mean, maybe actually it's, for some people there is one definitive moment where they were like, something really horrible happened to them. For some people it is, but for others, for me, it wasn't like that. It was like a big collection of shit, and I had to kind of reacquaint myself with my true self-worth, because I think underneath most of mine was I didn't really see myself as someone like of value, like deep down. I'm probably phrasing this terribly, but yeah, I just did not, you could say I didn't feel like I had a lot of self-love. And it was like getting to the bottom of those things. But I'm kind of lucky, because there was actually points when I was younger when I had a lot of passions that I was excited about every day. Like, I remember being a kid and actually waking up every day and just being so excited to go do art. And it was like, I used to make these stop motion videos with plasticine people. And I remember I would have been like 9 or 10. Every day, all I would do was think up new like movies I could make. And then I'd spend all day filming these little stop motions with these like clay blob guys. And I loved it. And it was like, that sounds like, yeah, of course you were a kid. But just knowing that there was a time in my existence where I actually just enjoyed doing something that wasn't a drug was huge. Because then I could like say, okay, I've actually enjoyed life before without needing exogenous compound, like the interference of these exogenous compounds to impregnate me with this artificial elation. And it's like just knowing that I was pretty like, you know, elated. Like I was pretty joyful without drugs, regardless of being a kid or not, was really valuable for me for overcoming it. Because then I just thought, like, it's not like I'm creating something new. I'm just going back to how I was at an earlier time. Am I making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because when we're a kid, that kind of gives us a window on what our authentic self is before the societal programs and all this bullshit that comes in and all the habits and patterns that come later. And it's a good way to actually find out who you are, is like go back. What did I actually enjoy as a kid? What came naturally to me?
Before the stresses, you know?
Yeah.
Before like all life threw the stress on you. I remember when stresses started to show up in my life, it would always feel like a new weight was being added to my body. Like there was just one weight. Now you've got like 30 pounds of stress, now 40. And it just, you know, it actually, you could feel like it's weighing you down. It's just like a new layer of shit is constantly added. Like I remember being like, okay, now I'm in high school. And then what are my worries now? Now I've got to worry about, university, college, a job. And then after that, you've got to worry about paying rent, and like all these little things just start piling up. And I was really bad at managing stress. That would be something that led me to using drugs, because I would just feel a lot of anxiety around stressful things. So the drugs would give me a temporary relief of that anxiety. Yeah.
And drugs can they kind of seem like a magic pill at that time. I think like I was like an alcoholic for so long. Well, I'm Australian, so it's kind of synonymous, but I used it for social anxiety, and it kind of gives you that false sense of like, oh, I can talk to people now. But then it was just kind of masking that. And over time, I know what I've discovered, and I don't know if you can take it or leave it, but I feel like whatever a drug gives you is usually the exact thing that it takes away long term. You know, so if you think that alcohol gives you more confidence and decreases your social anxiety, I think over time, that's usually the things that it ends up deteriorating, you know, or with weed, for example.
That's what the ADHD drugs do that.
Yeah, exactly. Like it gives you focus, and then over time, do you find that it just destroys your focus over time? Yeah. Or it's like weed with creativity or inspiration or feeling less stressed out. I think over time, when you do it for such a long time, those are the things that get affected the most. So it's interesting.
No, I agree with you. There's actually some pharmacological evidence to point towards why that happens, like on an actual like tangible level. Say this isn't fully why it happens, but it's just an easy way to understand it for people to like conceptualize what you're saying in like a real life scenario. Say opioids, when you're taking opioids all the time, your brain is already got like its normal levels of, say, neurotransmitters before the opioids come in. So then when you're taking the opioids, you're actually like, say, dopamine and everything is raised higher. But as you're taking opioids more every single day, your natural levels of dopamine decrease more and more. So it gets to the point where it's like the opioid is only bringing you like slightly above your normal amount. So whatever you were taking it for initially, when your normal amount was here, say it brought you up to here for dopamine, and say that dopamine was responsible for confidence. So it's like not very confident self. Now you have this higher influx of dopamine, so you're more confident. But as you're taking it more and more, as your natural levels drop more and more, it's like now without it, you're all the way down here. And it's like it just took away whatever confidence you had. So now you need it just to have normal confidence.
Hope you enjoyed this short Your Mate Tom clip with PsychedSubstance. The full video version is out for patrons only at the moment, so feel free to check that out. The full audio version is on the Your Mate Tom podcast, which is available on Spotify and iTunes. Link in the description. And yeah, that's it. Wishing you guys all the best. Much love, and we'll speak very soon. Peace.